Welcome, John Report fans, to another upload to our YouTube channel. I'm David Kay, alongside the main eventer, John Canton.
But you already knew that.
There you go. It flows right into our topic today. We're going to be talking about Alberto Del Rio.
One of my favorites.
I think he's my favorite, of course. I picked him for the Royal Rumble. And didn't you, John?
That's true. I did not. You picked him, so good for you. I thought Cena was going to win, so I'm glad Del Rio won.
Just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to remind you of that. But
I think we all have a little bit of a man crush on this guy, to be honest. You know, in a professional way.
Of course. Nothing but professional.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No. So why do you think he's over right now? What do you think's really getting him over as a heel with the fans? What do you think's really working for him?
I think the biggest thing is he's got a gimmick and he's got a character. A lot of people says it reminds him of JBL, and I totally agree. You know, the rich aristocrat kind of guy. I'm better than you. And then he wins his matches. Like, he says, I'm going to win, and then he wins. Like, he got put over Ray Strong. He won the Rumble. Like, he's getting pushed. How many heels do we see, like Drew McIntyre and all these guys come in, and Orton for years, and then, you know, Ted DiBiase, all these guys are like, okay, I'm better than you. Well, what's your gimmick? What are you? Drew's the chosen one. Well, what the hell does that mean? Then he's losing matches to Matt Hardy. Well, people don't really believe you're the chosen one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when Del Rio comes in and says, I'm going to win, and then, okay, he comes in and breaks Ray's arm, you know, quote-unquote breaks Ray's arm, and then he takes out Christian, who was also legitimately injured at the time. Those two things were huge for him because they said, okay, this guy's legit. This guy's a top guy already because he's beating these guys. They got behind the character. All those. How many videos did they put behind him before he debuted? Like 6, 7, 8 weeks, something like that. Like every week was a different video of this guy walking down the house. And I remember writing in my Talking Smack column, I was like, I just want to see this guy. I'm tired of the damn videos. Just put him on. And then I thought I wouldn't like him, but then he comes on. He's got the ring announcer. Nobody else has that. He's got the fireworks. He comes on the cars. Like, think about that. That's a star power entrance. And that's all you have to do. You got to just invest a little bit of time and gimmick into the character, and he takes off. That's all it is.
I see where you're going with that, but I think the big difference is really that finisher. I mean, I know we talked about this on the side, but I think having a submission finisher really gets you over because it's not only just putting a guy in pain, but then when the ref calls for the bell, you know, and they're trying to pull you off, you're sitting there inflicting more pain on them. Just that image will last a lot longer in somebody's head rather than, oh, I'm going to have an impact move where, okay, now you're dazed or you're not getting up. And I think a lot of that goes to the fact that, you know, they can't use blood anymore, so they really can't get over any moves as powerful or anything. They're really trying to stay away from concussion stuff, so they're trying to get away from head impacts. So, I mean, these finishers that these guys have, I mean, I think we talked about how Dolph Ziggler's finisher, the zigzag, is possibly one of the worst finishers ever because he takes most of the bump. I think that's part of what's getting Del Rio over huge is the fact that he slaps that on anybody and puts him in a lot of pain.
And they tap out fast. Like, they make it look like it's a MMA submission move where the guy has to tap out right away. Like, you know, like a rear naked choke. When somebody slaps that on, you don't last in it very long in MMA.
Right.
You know, it's the same kind of thing. They slap that arm breaker on within 3-4 seconds, the guy's tapping. That's how you get to move over. And I do think that's a big part of it, too. And like, there's the little things too, like his smile and the wink. Like those, you just want to see the guy get his ass kicked, right?
Yeah,
that's a heel. Like that guy. Like, what the hell are you winking at me? Slap that guy in the face. You know what I mean? Like, nobody likes to get winked at. Nobody likes to have some guy with a cocky grin that says I'm better than you. So they want to see him get his ass kicked. That's what a heel is. He has no intention of making you laugh or making a joke or being the cool heel that we've seen in wrestling forever. He just wants to, you know, piss you off and make you want to pay your money to get his ass kicked. You know what I mean? So He's an old school traditional heel, and that's why it works.
Well, and I think a lot of that also attributed to the fact that they took his mask off when he came to the WWE from the other promotions that he had. But they are bringing in Mystico. So with two masked wrestlers and him as a third luchador, how do you think that's playing into the whole culture of WWE right now? I know they just had that San Diego show where it didn't draw as many fans as you said. How do you think this whole culture is starting to change with Del Rio coming into fruition as he is?
Yeah, they just did the SmackDown tape in San Diego, and I read the attendance wasn't what it used to be, which is kind of surprising because with Del Rio getting the push, and Ray obviously is a San Diego guy, it's one of those things where I thought it'd be a hot crowd kind of thing, and you know, we don't know him from having his mask on. Like he's been in WWE in 2009, 2010. Like he spent a year basically getting seasoned for this, right? So he
Right.
definitely was somebody that got developed. And with Mystico coming in, Mystico's a different kind of wrestler. He's very tiny. He's like 5'6", 5'7". Doesn't even weigh 200 pounds. So he's kind of like Rey Mysterio, but he won't be able to cut promos like Mysterio because he doesn't speak English. From what I understand. So he'll kind of be like more of a traditional luchador. Whereas Ray, we know his personality, we know his family. They brought out, Ray's a veteran Hall of Famer, a lot of that stuff. So I think you got three different kind of characters, so that's a good thing. Like Mystical will remind a lot of us probably of what Ray was 15 years ago in WCW when he wasn't cutting promos. Remember?
Yeah.
He was. I remember Ray was the guy that my friend and I would get the pay-per-views off the D-Scrambler. I'd get the tape and we'd take him to his house after school and we'd watch the Ray matches and just be like, wow, this guy's incredible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He stood out, and I think Mystico's going to be like that for a lot of teenagers that don't know if they let him show his moveset.
I mean, do you think they're gonna
That's my worry about him because... Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, do you think they're gonna throttle him back? I mean, do you really think they're gonna let him do some of the crazy stuff? I mean, there's YouTube videos of him doing some pretty insane moves.
I don't know. Like that's. Are they going to neuter him? That's what a lot of people. The term people use. Are they going to WWE style him, quote unquote? Because it's one of those things where they like to train their guys to work all the same way, but he's not somebody that you can train that way. Like look at Caval, Loki. He was a good worker, but they didn't really like his style. I guess they didn't really get behind him. He's a different style, a different kind of worker, and they could have got behind it, but they didn't really do it. Even though the fans liked him, I mean, they voted him to win next NXT. So, I don't know.
Do you think they put him through an NXT type situation? Throw him through... Well, Tough Enough isn't really the same thing.
Because those shows, you need guys to talk to, right? So, he doesn't speak English as far as I know. So, I don't think that'll work. You just should be like the luchador wrestler that doesn't...
Just team up with Yoshitatsu and...
Maybe have Ray bring him in. Say, this is my friend. I don't know.
Or his cousin. Isn't that what you do when they look alike? Their cousin?
Yeah, they have a mask of their cousins. They could that could work.
So, well, okay, so getting away from that, we know going into Sunday that he's got the match with Kofi Kingston. Looking past that, obviously he's going to go into WrestleMania vying for the World Heavyweight title against whoever it is. What do you think the outcome is going to be, and what do you think it's going to be like after WrestleMania for ADR?
Well, it was in the Wrestling Observer. We both read that the plan was actually for him to win the title of the Royal Rumble, but they pushed it back, and it's expected that he'll win the world title at WrestleMania, which makes sense because Cena's probably going to win the other title, so you'll have one on a heel, one on a babyface, just like it is now. It'll just probably be two title switches. And then I think he'll have a decent run, but the other thing is I think he'll probably get moved to Raw at some point, too, because I think they'll want him against Cena. Because Vince is clearly behind the act. Look how much time he's getting on Raw to cut promos and establish his character and all this kind of stuff. So I think they definitely want to get him on Raw sooner rather than later. Although I think Cena can also feud with Punk after WrestleMania. So.
Where does that put Miz? I think you're starting to load up Raw a little too much if you put ADR over.
I know. Maybe you move Miz to SmackDown, but Vince is a fan of his too. Like Vince is a fan of all these guys right now, but you can see the machine is behind Del Rio a lot. So, I don't know. Maybe if Undertaker keeps going, then you put him against Undertaker. You know what I mean?
Well,
he's kind of got some submission moves, too.
You're booking. What are you doing? What are you doing with him going into WrestleMania after it?
I would keep him on SmackDown after, but you got to get him on Raw some way later in the year. And the lottery will be before that, right? So, I don't know. But I think we'll see Cena versus ADR at some point in 2011.
SummerSlam?
Maybe later.
Maybe later.
But I think they're really behind him, and he's really getting over, and they need him on the A show, I think. But who knows?
Do you
Wherever
think
he is, he's going to fit in because he's a good character.
Do you think his character doesn't have enough depth to feud with Cena? And what I mean by that, I guess, is do you think that the fact that he comes out there and just pretty much says that he's better than everyone, do you think that's really going to work against a Cena type where he's trying to play off of some sort of hatred for the character?
I think it works because he's a true heel. He doesn't. He's not similar to Cena. He's not similar to what we. He's not similar to Miz. He's not similar to Jericho. You know what I mean?
But that's what I'm saying. I think Cena, being the neutered talker, as we like to call, as you would say. I mean, can he work with a guy like that? Is there enough there for a John Cena who can't talk like he did in 2003? Can he work with Alberto in 2011 with the character that he has?
I think so because they're pretty opposite and stuff. So I think it'll work. Fans want to boo Del Rio. What do you think?
But you put Cena in there, and then it's just changing the situation. I think Cena's not over enough as a babyface to really get behind him, and it'd be too mixed with Alberto Del Rio. I think he'd do a lot better getting over somebody like Morrison, where Morrison's much more of a fan favorite.
And there's a feud with Christian that's all ready to go.
And
If Del Rio gets the title, then you can feud Christian with him, whether Christian wins the belt or not, which I don't think will happen. A lot of people get excited because it'd be Christian's first world title feud. So you could do that right after WrestleMania. It's got a hot story going in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot they could do with Del Rio. Somebody could build around.
So that's all for today's YouTube upload. Want to thank John for stopping by, obviously, and giving his.
But you already knew that.
But you already knew
I love that line. We gotta mention that. I think that whole thing where he does his entrance says, "My name is Alberto Del Rio," and then he pauses. But you already knew that. Like, I don't see the crowd chanting along, but they kind of pop for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a cool little thing.
I use that at least 4 times a day. I think I used that in the preview a couple times, and I think you did too.
Yeah, it reminds you of the Sean O'Hare thing where I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, which the company never really got behind, but it's one of those sayings that it's kind of a catchphrase, but it's kind of annoying, and it's kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah,
they need more of those things.
Exactly. I think that's the lack of catchphrases in general. You're just used to Cena pumping himself up and all this stuff. I think it's a lot fresher to see something like that happen. So I think that's another reason why he's getting over so big.
Yeah, like I have no problem with The Miz, but I'm The Miz and I'm awesome is not that creative. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and CM Punk doesn't really have a phrase, and Cena's are kind of annoying, and Orton doesn't really have one. But then you think of, The Rock had all of them, and Austin had all those things, and Foley had Have a Nice Day. Like, these things worked.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Catchphrases are part of wrestling, just like finishers are.
And managers.
Yeah. Well, not anymore.
Of course. But I do want to mention that you should jump over to the www.thejohnreport.net. Make sure you're reading up on everything, all the news and happenings in the world of wrestling. It's definitely the #1 spot to get all that. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/thejohnreportnet. Make sure you're following both me and John over at John Report, and me as at Dave the Awesome. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. Anything else you want to mention before we head out?
That's all, folks.
And that's all,
See
folks.
you next time.
See you next time.